Reparations is a specific conversation about a specific time in America, and that is black people were slaves. So to your question, I think you have to understand what the word reparations means first. So reparations, you are repairing something that you have broken. You are paying for something that you were supposed to pay for. I'm not saying that there aren't people living in America today who are suffering and are going through pain and strife because of what's happening when it comes to the machines taking jobs, factories becoming industrialized, etc. But reparations is a specific conversation about a specific time in America, and that is black people were slaves.
Article that got a lot of attention in The Atlantic a couple of years ago called The Case for Reparations by Ta-Nehisi Coates. Quote, "White supremacy is a force so fundamental to America that it is difficult to imagine the country without it. Reparations is the price we must pay to see ourselves squarely." Close quote. And Tom Sowell, who actually saw Jim Crow with his own eyes and experienced it, responds how?
It would be nice to know his evidence for what he said, just to be old-fashioned about it. No, it was a rotten system. But I don't know how we get from that to reparations. I mean, what we see in the United States in terms of the bad things, you see all around the world. If you were to give reparations to everyone whose ancestors had been slaves, I suspect that you would have to give reparations to more than half the entire population of the globe. Slavery was not confined to one set of races. I suspect that most of the people who were either slaves or slave owners around the world were neither white nor black. I mean, this was a universal curse of the human species.
Africa, the Middle East, Asia, slavery took place everywhere.
And it continued elsewhere.
Me personally, bro, I don't really understand the specifics when it comes to reparations. So how would that work? Would you give every black person in America like $1 million or something? Or $100,000? Like what is defined as reparations? Like how would you play that out? Or is reparations like a never-ending thing that just continues on forever? The reason I'm bringing this up because when you have the argument that black people in America deserve reparations, my thing is, what would that look like? Would it look like equal opportunity? Would it look like actual money? Because if you say it's equal opportunity or stuff like that, I would say, well, I have equal opportunity because I'm like, that's how I look at it. I have equal opportunity. I can do anything that someone else can do, regardless of race. So is that reparations, or would reparations be like a financial thing, like a tangible block of cash? Like what would that equate to? And if you talk about giving us reparations, would Native Americans also get reparations? Where does it end? How do you determine who gets reparations and who doesn't get reparations? That's the only question that I will have. If anyone can answer that, please let me know.
Long after it was abolished in the Western countries.
Right. You know what I mean? I've even heard people say like, oh, but there were some of the Irish who were indentured. Like, yeah, slavery. Look at the numbers, look at the time, look at the level of work. You could not work toward your freedom. For most black people in America, this was a time when you lived and died as a slave. And so that's what reparations is about.
The other thing, I have a slight sidebar in there on the history of slavery.
Mm-hmm.
The history of slavery existed all over the world for thousands of years among all sorts of people, as far back as the history of the human species goes. It's one of many evils that the left tries to localize, when in fact it is a universal evil. But more than that, as much as slavery is repudiated around the world today, prior to the 18th century, I know of no serious effort to abolish the institution anywhere. Anywhere.
Not in Africa, not in the Arabian world.
Not in Africa in the 21st century. When Adam Smith wrote in 1776 that the only place in the world where slavery had been abolished completely was Western Europe. And so this was
as late as the year this country was founded.
Yes.
I didn't know
so
that.
the idea that this is something that the United States had that nobody else had, or the other countries that didn't have, It's been estimated that there are more slaves in India than in the entire Western Hemisphere.
What?
And that's before and after Columbus got here. Right.
And so I hear what you're saying, but I think that's a completely separate conversation that needs to be had about the now. Because if you are not careful, what you then do is you combine everybody's suffering into the same bowl and you make it seem like all injustices have the same weighting, and they don't. It's just like crimes. You know, theft isn't the same as murder. We don't try them the same way. And as much as there is a white person who's suffering today, I feel for anybody who's suffering, because I know what it's like to be poor. I know what it's like to suffer. I didn't come from a wealthy family. We struggled when I was growing up. But I also understand that there are levels of that suffering, you know? And so sometimes white people, it does block a white person because you go, white privilege.
I think anybody who actively argues for reparations is kind of delusional. And the reason I'm saying that is because I think I'm equal in America. Like, I know I'm equal in America. I know I can do anything I want in this country. I have never faced any type of pushback. Well, probably, but I'm just so intelligent that I can do anything I want. And that's what I believe in myself. That's the confidence I have instilled within me. And if I have a younger sister, I do have a younger sister. I have a family. I have people who watch my channel who look like me or even don't look like me. I'm going to tell them, you can do whatever you want. Don't let nobody tell you different. I don't care where you're from. I don't care what you've dealt with. You can do exactly whatever you want. That's what I believe. So when I hear about reparations, I'm like, you're a little delusional. Because we have someone like Trevor Noah. I guess he's arguing for reparations. He's literally one of the richest talk show hosts in the world. Like, he's one of the most popular. I'm not going to say richest because I don't know. But he's one of the most popular in the world. A black man climbed his way up, one of the most popular in the world. Thomas Sowell, one of the most popular black men in the world. Like, you have the richest black dudes, the most popular black dudes in these positions, and this is who I'm watching right now. Like, I just don't understand. What would reparations look like for you? Would you want to own CNN or own CBS? Like, is that reparations for you? And how would that work? How would that affect the economy? Like, we have people who have Louis Vuitton bags, wearing Gucci, Chanel, Dior, driving Benzes, BMWs, living in mini mansions, talking about reparations. Like, what do you mean? What would it look like? You make $200,000 a year talking about reparations. In this case, he makes probably $1 million a year talking about reparations. You make more than 99% of white people in this country. Like, what would it look like for you? And that's the only thing I have. Like, would it be like a big thing of money? Like, what would it be? I don't get it. Like, and my thing is, it's like when people say, eat the rich. It's like you have a rich person saying, eat the rich. Like, bro, and it's just a lot of it's a lot of contradictions, because you're not giving up what you have for other people. You just want someone else to give up what they have. Like, what do you mean? It's like when you have a rich person say, eat the rich. Like, that person not gonna give up their money to you, but they still want you to hate rich people. It's like the same thing. Like, you're not going to give up your salary or nothing you have, or you're not going to want any of the people you know to do it, but, you know, you still think you deserve reparations. Like, what do you mean? When does it end? What are you talking about?
And the person goes, I'm poor and I'm white. Where's the privilege? You know, white people are like, I wish I could activate my white privilege. I wish I could do it right now. White privilege! Give me something. I get that. I get that. Trust me, I get it. It is hard to accept that you have benefits because of the color of your skin if you cannot see the benefits that you have.
The book that I'm writing now, I discovered this is true not only in the United States, it's true in England, and the situation is wholly different. And yet, if you read the data, for example, from London, the educational tests and so forth.
He's talking about benefits because of the color of your skin. The reason I don't really get into super deep debates, because all this type of stuff is circumstantial and it's subjective. Like, what do you mean have the benefits to the color of your skin? If you say that, like, let's talk about it. You're Trevor Noah. If you go outside and you go up to the average white person in America making $54,000 a year, and you walk up to them and say, well, you have more benefits than me, they gonna be looking at you like you're insane. Like, you're Trevor Noah. Aren't you like a millionaire talk show host? They're like, yeah, but you have more benefits than me because of the color of your skin. That's what I mean by everything is kind of subjective. It's kind of circumstantial, because when you're talking about reparations, you're talking about something real, that's tangible. That's like a lump sum of money. It's either a piece of land. It's something tangible that you're taking from others and giving to you. That's reparations. So when you're talking about a subjective issue such as benefits or privileges. What do you mean by that? Because if I'm being literal, you have literally more privilege than 99% of people in America. White, black, it don't matter. You have more privilege than 99% of the country. So you're going to take something else that someone else has and give it to you, which you already don't need. Like, that's all I'm trying to say. Like, what are you implying when you say stuff like this? Like, just because you don't see your privilege doesn't mean you don't have it. But I do see your privilege. So you actually do have real privilege that I can see, I can hear on real time, real life. I can hear and see your privilege. Do you still want reparations from someone else whose family is making $60,000 a year or $50,000 a year? Do you want that? Like, is that your goal? Is that what you want?
Fourth, you see that there, immigrants from Africa pass this test they have. I'm talking about low-income people now. Nearly 60% of the time. Blacks from Caribbean, like 50%, so on. Native-born whites in the same low-income bracket pass this test 30% of the time. And it's the same thing. The foreign people come in, they haven't had generations of being steeped in the welfare state vision, the vision of grievances, victimology, and resentments, the idea that there are enemies out there dedicated to keeping you down. That's the message that's been pumped into the head of the white lower class in Britain, and that's the image that's been pumped into the black low-income people in the United States, and the results are the same in both cases.
But the thing I try to explain to a person is, think of it more like golf. Don't think of it as privilege, then think of it like a handicap, right? In golf, they acknowledge that you are in a position where you need so many advantages to be competitive in the game.
Is that we ought not?
But reparations aren't a handicap. Let's talk about it. Let's say you aren't able to walk or something. That's considered a handicap in the United States. You have to use a wheelchair, and some genie came out the sky and said, everyone who can't walk, I'm going to grant you the ability to walk. You probably like, yay, I can walk now. But that's not how reparations will work. This is how reparations will work. A genie will come out the sky and say, everyone who can't walk now, I'll grant you the ability to walk. However, everyone who can walk, I'm going to take your ability to walk and give it to the ones who can. But if you could walk, you're going to be like, whoa, why are you taking my ability to walk? I didn't say that. I didn't make them not walk. And the genie's going to be like, well, your ancestors probably made it so that their ancestors couldn't walk. So I'm just going to take yours instead. That's how reparations will work in the way that we're defining it here. It's not necessarily giving others benefit that wouldn't have hurt anyone else. No, you're going to be hurting other people that may or may not have caused your problems. Who knows at this point? You're just going to take it from them and give it to someone else. And also, any person who's using other people as an excuse or as a scapegoat as to why they aren't living the life they want, they're just delusional. Like, life has a lot of problems. Life has a lot of problems. But I've never in my life, with all the problems I faced, looked at someone of a different race and said, you're the reason I'm facing this. That has never even crossed my mind. It's a lot of problems I have with a day-to-day. You probably have some too. I know you do. We all do. But if you ever look at me, or you look at someone else and say, they're the cause of your problems, like as an entire race or entire group, you might have to get checked out in the head. I'm not going to lie.
To be doing this?
You know, there are various laws and policies that benefit one group at the expense of another. But I think affirmative action has the distinction of being one that it harms everybody, though in different ways. And so there's a lot of evidence that there are black kids who have all the qualifications to be successes in college, who nevertheless are failures because they are systematically mismatched with institutions whose standards they don't meet, even though they may meet the standards of 80 or 90% of the colleges in America. I remember first aware of this when I was teaching at Cornell, and I found that half the black students at Cornell were on some kind of academic probation. And so I went over to the administration building and looked up the SATs of these students. The average black student at Cornell at that time scored at the 75th percentile.
75th?
Which is pretty darn good.
Yes. And so that means that in most
That's good. I think I scored in the 75th percentile. I need to look it up. So I scored higher than the 75th percentile in the SAT. I'm not even gonna lie. I scored higher than that. But my thing is this. When you have these type of standards where, let's talk about affirmative action, because I've said something similar to this, where you keep changing the standard of something, but it doesn't help anyone. That's all I'm gonna say. Because you're still gonna expect a certain standard, but you're changing like the entry level to that standard. Like, it's not gonna help nobody, bruh. If you're at Cornell, an Ivy League, and you scored within the 75th percentile, you don't need to be there, bruh. You don't need to be there. I'm not gonna lie. Like, 75th percentile is not that high. Like, if you're going to an Ivy League, you need to be in the 99th percentile. At least the 95th percentile, at least. Because I scored higher than the 75th percentile, and I'm not in no Ivy League. I knew I didn't want to go to no Ivy League. I didn't prepare myself to go to no Ivy League fresh out of high school. I didn't. That's a different level of academics that I, at the time, wasn't prepared to go to. I probably could have gotten in just based off of the average SAT that's a different race being a 75th percentile. That's crazy. But, bro, it's not going to help you at the end of the day. You can go to any other college. Why do you want to go to Ivy?
colleges in this country, they would have no trouble, and many of them would be on the dean's list. But at Cornell, the average liberal arts student at that time was in the 99th percentile.
Yeah, like I said.
When you're teaching the students like that, you teach at a pace that most people of any race cannot keep up with.
That's facts.
And it was always complained that I was assigning all kinds of reading, but heck, I'm teaching kids who are in the top 1%. They can keep up with the reading that I'm assigning.
So Cornell was taking very talented black kids and spending 4 years teaching them to feel inadequate.
Yes, and succeeding at that.
Right? So what they say is you have a handicap of 15, so that means like you're going to be hitting from this tee and you get more chances to get the ball in because we understand the position you're in. And if you're a black person in America, from slavery, from day one.
Pondering all this, I noticed something, a column that you wrote, this is a couple of years ago.
All I'm going to say is this, bro. If you're a black person in America, don't use slavery or your lack of reparations as a reason why you can't succeed. Because you're only doing a disservice to yourself, to your family. That's it. Like, and to your community, I guess. Like, you're just doing a disservice. Because not only are you denouncing your natural God-given abilities, you're denouncing the amount of work that you've done. You're denouncing the struggles and trials that your family's history has been through so you can get to this point. And if you're using their lives as an excuse for why the life that you have isn't turned out the way you want it to be, you're never going to achieve the life you want. Because in this country, you can achieve anything you want. Sometimes it could be harder. I don't mean like literally you can't just start flying because you live in America, even though our mascot is an eagle or something. You can't just start busting out flying like Superman. But if, let's say you want to reach 6 figures, you can reach 6 figures. Let's say you want a family, you want a house. You can do that, bro. Don't use another race as an excuse. Please don't. Because it's not going to help you. It's not going to help anyone. And I'm not saying that as a place of ignorance. I'm being dead serious, man. But anyways, you have any more suggestions for me, comment them down below.